Max was just an ordinary boy, or so everyone thought. He lived in a small town on a distant human colony called Terra Minor. The colony was quiet, and not much ever happened there. It was far away from the core of the galaxy, where the powerful Zareth Empire ruled over many planets and alien races, including humans. Most people on Terra Minor had learned to keep their heads down and live simple lives under the Empire's control. Max was no different, or so it seemed. Max lived with his parents in a modest house near the edge of town. His father worked in the colony's mining operations, while his mother managed a small shop. Max spent most of his time exploring the surrounding forests and mountains, often dreaming of adventures in faraway worlds. He was curious by nature and loved searching for hidden treasures in the woods. Little did he know, one day, he would find something far more valuable than any treasure. One afternoon, while exploring deeper into the forest than usual, Max stumbled upon something strange. He had found an old cave, hidden behind thick vines and rocks. It looked ancient, like it had been there for hundreds of years. Max, being the curious boy he was, couldn't resist entering the cave. Armed with only a small flashlight, he stepped inside. The air inside the cave was cool and damp. The walls were covered in strange markings that Max had never seen before. As he ventured further in, the tunnel opened up into a large chamber. There, in the middle of the room, stood something incredible, an artifact glowing faintly with a strange blue light. Max's heart raced. He approached the artifact cautiously, his eyes wide with awe. It was a tall, metallic structure, shaped like a cylinder, with intricate designs etched into its surface. At the top, a small orb hovered, spinning slowly and humming softly. Max had never seen anything like it. Was it alien? Or maybe it was from Earth's ancient past? Unable to resist, Max reached out and touched the artifact. As soon as his fingers made contact with the cool metal, a sudden surge of energy shot through his body. His vision blurred, and for a moment, everything went black. When Max opened his eyes again, he was lying on the floor of the cave. The artifact was still there, but something had changed. He felt different, stronger. His body tingled with energy, and his mind was flooded with flashes of forgotten human history. He saw ancient battles between humans and alien invaders, powerful machines built by Earth's greatest scientists, and weapons of unimaginable power. Max realized that somehow the artifact had awakened something inside him. Unbeknownst to Max, the artifact had activated a dormant part of his DNA, an ancient genetic code passed down through the generations. Humans long ago had developed these powerful traits as a defense against the ruthless alien empires that sought to conquer them. But over time, the knowledge of these abilities had been lost, and humans became just another race in the galaxy, ruled over by the Zareth Empire. Max didn't fully understand what was happening to him, but he knew he had to leave the cave and get home. As he made his way back through the forest, he noticed something strange. His senses were sharper. He could hear the faintest rustling of leaves, and his vision was clearer than ever before. His body moved with ease, as if he had more strength than he had known before. When Max arrived home, his parents were waiting for him, worried. "Where have you been?" his mother asked, her voice filled with concern. Max hesitated, unsure of how to explain what had just happened. "I found something in the forest. Something strange," he said, his mind still racing with the images he had seen. Before he could say more, they heard a loud noise outside. It sounded like a ship landing. Max's father rushed to the window, and his face went pale. "The Zareth soldiers. They're here." The Zareth Dominion, known for their iron grip on the galaxy, had sent their enforcers to Terra Minor. Max had no idea that the artifact he touched had sent out a signal that alerted the Zareth to the ancient technology being awakened. The soldiers were here to investigate. Max's heart pounded. He didn't know how, but he knew the soldiers were here because of him. "We have to hide," Max's father said urgently. The family quickly gathered what they could and headed for the hidden basement beneath their home, a place where they could stay out of sight. But Max knew hiding wouldn't be enough. The Zareth soldiers would search the town until they found what they were looking for. He could feel the energy inside him growing, and a strange sense of confidence filled him. "Dad, I don't think we can hide forever," Max said quietly. "I think I need to face them." His parents looked at him, surprised. Max had always been a brave boy, but this was different. There was something in his voice, something powerful. They didn't understand what had happened to him, but they could see that something had changed. Max stepped out of the basement and into the street. The Zareth soldiers were marching through the town, searching every house. Their sleek, silver armor glinted in the afternoon sun. They were scanning the area with strange devices, looking for the source of the energy signal. As Max approached them, he felt a surge of power. His heart raced, but he was no longer afraid. He knew that the artifact had given him something special, something the Zareth couldn't control. The soldiers turned toward him, their eyes narrowing. Max stood his ground. Without warning, the soldiers raised their weapons, but before they could fire, something incredible happened. Max's body reacted on its own, faster than he could think. A wave of energy shot out from his hands, knocking the soldiers off their feet. They scrambled to get back up, but Max was already moving, faster and stronger than he had ever been before. In the blink of an eye, the Zareth soldiers were defeated, lying unconscious in the streets. Max stood over them, his chest heaving, his hands still tingling with energy. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, but he knew one thing for sure: the Zareth Dominion had no idea what they were up against. And this was only the beginning. The town was quiet now. The Zareth soldiers that had come looking for the signal were lying unconscious in the streets. Max stood in the middle of the road, his heart still racing. He couldn't believe what had just happened. The energy coursing through his veins felt alive, almost like it had a mind of its own. It was a strange feeling, one of immense power, but also great responsibility. His parents, who had watched the entire event unfold from their hiding place, slowly emerged from their home. Their faces were a mixture of shock and fear. Max's father, David, was the first to speak. "Max, what? What just happened?" he asked, his voice trembling. Max turned to face them, still trying to process everything himself. "I don't know," he admitted. "I found something in the forest. A strange artifact. I touched it, and then this happened." His mother, Emily, placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you?" "I'm fine," Max replied, though he didn't feel fine. He felt different, like something had been awakened deep inside him. But there's something else. The artifact. It showed me things. I saw ancient humans fighting aliens. There were weapons, powerful weapons. I think they're here, on Terra Minor." David frowned, trying to make sense of what his son was saying. "Weapons? You mean the old human tech? That stuff hasn't worked for centuries. The Zareth made sure of that." Max shook his head. "No, Dad. It's different. The artifact did something to me. I think it unlocked something in my DNA. I can feel it. And I think it's connected to those weapons. They're not just old tech. They're alive, in a way. They need someone like me to activate them." Emily gasped. "You're saying you can control these weapons?" Max wasn't entirely sure, but he nodded. "I think so. And if the Zareth figure that out, they'll come back with more soldiers. We need to find those weapons before they do." David, always the practical one, sighed deeply. "If you're right, we need to move fast. The Zareth will notice these soldiers are missing soon. We can't stay here." Max glanced at the fallen soldiers. They were still unconscious, but it wouldn't be long before more arrived. The Zareth Empire didn't take kindly to losing their forces, especially in a remote human colony. "We need to go back to the cave," Max said firmly. "That's where it all started. Maybe we'll find more clues there." David agreed. "All right, let's pack quickly and head out." Within minutes, the family gathered some supplies and left their home. Max led the way, his mind racing with the memories the artifact had shown him. He couldn't explain it, but he felt drawn to the cave, like it was calling him. The energy inside him pulsed with every step, urging him forward. The forest was dense and dark, but Max moved with a newfound confidence. His senses were heightened. He could hear the distant chirping of insects and smell the fresh pine in the air. It was as if every part of him had been enhanced. The power inside him was growing stronger, and he knew it wouldn't stop until he found the weapons. Finally, they reached the cave. It looked just as it had before, hidden behind the thick vines and rocks. But now, Max could feel the energy radiating from it, much stronger than before. "This is it," he said quietly. "We're close." The family entered the cave cautiously. The strange markings on the walls seemed to glow faintly, as if reacting to Max's presence. As they ventured deeper into the tunnel, the air grew cooler, and the hum of energy became more pronounced. In the chamber where Max had found the artifact, something had changed. The orb that had once hovered above the artifact was now glowing brightly, pulsing with a steady rhythm. Max approached it, feeling the pull of its power. "This is where it all started," Max said, reaching out to touch the orb again. As his fingers made contact, a surge of energy flowed through him, stronger than before. His mind was flooded with images once more, but this time they were clearer. He saw massive machines, towers of metal and energy, hidden deep beneath the surface of Terra Minor. They were the superweapons, built by the ancient humans to defend against the alien empires. "These weapons," Max whispered, his voice filled with awe. "They're here. They've been buried for centuries, but they're still active. And I can awaken them." David and Emily exchanged worried glances. "Are you sure about this, Max?" David asked. "These weapons, they could be dangerous." Max nodded. "I know. But they're our only chance. If we don't use them, the Zareth will destroy everything. We have to fight back." Without hesitation, Max placed his hands on the artifact. The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls of the cave shook. A low rumbling sound echoed through the tunnel as the ancient machines began to stir. The superweapons were waking up. Outside the cave, the ground cracked open, and massive metal towers began to rise from the earth. They were unlike anything Max had ever seen, tall, sleek, and glowing with an eerie blue light. The weapons hummed with energy, their power resonating with Max's own. Suddenly, a loud roar filled the air. The Zareth reinforcements had arrived. Dozens of ships descended from the sky, their engines roaring as they landed just outside the forest. Soldiers poured out, armed and ready for battle. Max's heart raced. He could feel the energy of the superweapons surging through him. He wasn't just controlling them, he was connected to them. They were an extension of his own power. The Zareth soldiers advanced, their weapons aimed at the rising towers. But Max was ready. With a single thought, the superweapons responded. Beams of energy shot out from the towers, striking the enemy ships with pinpoint accuracy. The Zareth forces were caught off guard, their defenses crumbling under the sheer power of the ancient human technology. Max stood at the entrance of the cave, his eyes glowing with the same blue light as the weapons. He had awakened something far greater than himself, something that could change the course of the war. The Zareth Empire had no idea what they were up against. The battle was only beginning. Max stood on the cliff, overlooking the now active superweapons. Towers of metal gleamed in the sunlight, their energy pulsating with every heartbeat. Max could feel the connection between him and the ancient machines growing stronger. He wasn't just controlling them, they were becoming a part of him. Below, the Zareth soldiers who had survived the first wave of attacks were regrouping. Their numbers were far greater than before, and this time they had brought reinforcements. Large, sleek warships hovered in the sky, casting shadows over the forest. The Zareth weren't going to give up easily. Max clenched his fists, feeling the hum of the superweapons in response to his emotions. He knew what he had to do, but he couldn't do it alone. His parents stood behind him, watching as the enemy forces gathered below. "We can't just fight them by ourselves," his father, David, said. "There's too many of them. Even with the superweapons, we're outnumbered." Max turned to face his parents, determination in his eyes. "We're not alone," he said firmly. "There are others humans who have been waiting for a chance to fight back against the Zareth. If we can reach them, we can start a rebellion." Emily, Max's mother, looked uncertain. "A rebellion? Max, the Zareth have controlled this planet for centuries. How are we supposed to organize something like that?" Max glanced back at the superweapons. "With these," he said confidently, The ancient humans built these machines to protect us. Now it's our turn to use them. We just need to find the others and show them what we have." David sighed, rubbing his forehead. "All right," he said finally. "But where do we start? We don't even know where the other colonies are." Max took a deep breath, focusing on the connection he felt with the superweapons. The energy flowing through him wasn't just power, it was knowledge. The artifact had shown him more than just the weapons. It had shown him the locations of hidden human settlements scattered across Terra Minor. "I know where they are," Max said, surprising his parents. "The artifact. It gave me the locations of the other colonies. They've been in hiding, just like us. If we can reach them, we can unite them. Together, we can stand against the Xerath." His parents exchanged glances, still unsure, but they trusted Max. After all, he had already done the impossible by awakening the superweapons. "We'll need to move fast," David said, scanning the horizon. "The Xerath will be sending more troops soon. If we're going to start a rebellion, we need to do it before they wipe us out." Max nodded, already thinking ahead. "We'll use the tunnels beneath the forest. They should lead us to the nearest settlement. From there, we can spread the word." The family gathered what supplies they could carry and set out, moving swiftly through the dense forest. Max led the way, his connection to the ancient machines guiding him like an invisible map. Every step he took brought them closer to the hidden human settlements. As they traveled, Max couldn't help but think about the burden he was carrying. He had never asked for this power, but now that he had it, he couldn't turn back. The fate of Terra Minor, and maybe even the entire human race, rested on his shoulders. After hours of walking, they finally reached the entrance to the tunnels. Hidden beneath a large boulder, the entrance was barely visible, but Max could feel the faint energy signature coming from it. The tunnels had been built by the ancient humans as a way to move supplies and people without being detected by the Xerath. "This is it," Max said, crouching down to clear the entrance. "The tunnels will take us to the first settlement. Once we're there, we can rally the others." The tunnels were dark and damp, but Max felt an odd sense of comfort as they walked deeper into the earth. The walls were lined with strange markings, similar to those he had seen in the cave where he found the artifact. The symbol seemed to glow faintly, as if responding to his presence. After what felt like hours of walking, they emerged from the tunnels into a large underground chamber. Ahead of them was a small human settlement, hidden away from the Xerath's watchful eyes. The people living there were surprised to see strangers, but when they saw the determination in Max's eyes, they knew something big was happening. An older man stepped forward, his face worn from years of hiding. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice gruff. Max took a step forward. "My name is Max," he said, "and I've come to start a rebellion." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "A rebellion? You're just a boy. How do you plan to fight the Xerath?" Max didn't flinch. "I've awakened the ancient superweapons," he said, his voice steady. "I can control them, and if we work together, we can use them to take back Terra Minor." There was a murmur of disbelief among the crowd. The older man crossed his arms, studying Max carefully. "Superweapons, you say? And why should we believe you?" Max didn't say a word. Instead, he reached out with his mind, tapping into the energy of the superweapon. Instantly, the ground beneath the settlement rumbled, and a faint blue glow filled the chamber. The people gasped in shock, some of them stumbling back in fear. The older man's eyes widened. "By the stars," he whispered. "You're telling the truth." Max nodded. "We don't have much time," he said urgently. "The Xerath will be sending more troops soon. If we don't unite now, we'll lose our chance to fight back." The man stood in silence for a moment, his mind racing. Then, finally, he nodded. "All right, boy. We'll join you. But you better be ready for a fight, because the Xerath won't go down without one." Max smiled, relief washing over him. "I'm ready," he said. "Let's show the Xerath what humans are capable of." The rebellion had grown faster than anyone could have imagined. Max's awakening of the ancient superweapons had spread hope throughout the human colonies. As more settlements joined the fight, the once scattered resistance began to unite into a real army. But the Xerath Empire wasn't blind. They had seen the rise of this rebellion, and now they were coming to crush it. Max stood at the command post inside a hidden bunker, surrounded by leaders of the resistance. A large holographic map of Terra Minor floated in the air before them, showing the movements of Zareth forces. Red dots, representing enemy ships, were swarming toward the central region of the planet. It was clear the final battle was coming. David, Max's father, stood next to him, arms crossed. "They're bringing everything they have," he said grimly. "If we don't stop them here, it's all over." Max nodded, but his eyes were focused on the glowing blue icons on the map, his superweapons. He could feel their power even from this distance. They were waiting for him to give the order, but Max knew this battle wasn't just about brute force. The Zareth had ruled for centuries because of their superior tactics and advanced war machines. This fight would take more than just the superweapon's strength. Emily, Max's mother, entered the room holding a datapad. "We've got word from the other colonies," she said. "They're ready to fight. Everyone's looking to you, Max." Max took a deep breath. He hadn't asked to be a leader, but now he had no choice. His mind raced through the memories the artifact had given him, strategies used by ancient human generals, the way they had fought against impossible odds and still won. He had to do the same. "They'll expect us to defend the cities," Max said, finally speaking. "But that's not what we're going to do." The resistance leaders turned to look at him, surprised. Max stepped closer to the map. "The Zareth think they can overwhelm us with numbers, but we'll hit them before they're ready. We'll use the tunnels to move our forces and strike their landing zones. If we can disable their ships before they deploy, we can turn the tide." David raised an eyebrow. "That's risky, Max. If they figure out what we're doing, they could trap us underground." Max shook his head. "They won't expect it. They think we're going to fight a desperate defense. We have to be smarter than that." The leaders exchanged glances. Max's plan was bold, but it was their best shot. After a moment, they all nodded in agreement. "It's settled then," Max said. "We launch the attack before dawn. Let's show the Zareth they've underestimated us for the last time." As night fell, the rebellion forces moved into position. The tunnels beneath Terra Minor stretched for miles, leading right to the areas where the Zareth warships were preparing to land. Max led a small group of fighters, his parents by his side, as they made their way through the dark passages. The air was thick with tension, but Max's mind was calm, focused. The connection with the superweapons was stronger than ever. He could feel them, waiting, ready to unleash their power when the time came. But Max also knew he had to be careful. The superweapons were immensely powerful, but if used recklessly, they could destroy more than just the enemy. Max didn't want to see Terra Minor reduced to rubble, even if it meant victory. Finally, they reached the exit of the tunnel. Above them, the Zareth ships hovered like dark clouds, preparing to land their troops and equipment. Max signaled his fighters to spread out, taking positions around the landing zones. They were outnumbered, but surprise was on their side. The first ship touched down, its engines roaring. Zareth soldiers began to pour out, their silver armor gleaming under the moonlight. Max watched carefully, waiting for the right moment. His heart pounded in his chest, but he knew what he had to do. "Now!" Max shouted. The resistance fighters sprang into action. Explosions rocked the landing zone as they attacked the Zareth soldiers from all sides. Chaos erupted as the enemy scrambled to defend themselves. Max, with his enhanced abilities, moved faster than anyone, leading the charge. The Zareth soldiers were caught off guard, their well-trained ranks thrown into disarray. But the real strike came from above. Max closed his eyes for a brief moment, reaching out to the superweapons. The connection was instant, the power surging through him like a wave. The ancient towers, hidden in the mountains, came to life. Beams of blue energy shot through the sky, targeting the Zareth ships. One by one, the massive warships were hit, their shields failing under the intense energy. The explosions lit up the night, and Max could hear the cheers of his fighters as they realized the tide was turning in their favor. But the Zareth weren't finished yet. From the largest ship, a dark figure emerged. Max recognized him instantly, General Krath, the leader of the Zareth forces on Terra Minor. Clad in heavy black armor, Krath stepped forward, his eyes locked on Max. "You think you can defeat the Zareth Empire with a few old machines?" Kraith growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're just a boy playing with toys." Max stepped forward, his gaze steady. "These aren't toys. And I'm not just a boy." Kraith sneered, raising his arm. A blaster shot fired toward Max, but before it could hit, Max had barely even thought about it. The superweapons were protecting him, acting as an extension of his own will. The battle between Max and Kraith began. It was unlike anything the Resistance had ever seen. Max used the energy of the superweapons to dodge Kraith's attacks, sending blasts of blue energy toward the general. Kraith, with his advanced armor, was fast and deadly, but Max had the power of ancient human technology on his side. Finally, with one powerful strike, Max unleashed a wave of energy that knocked Kraith off his feet. The general crashed to the ground, his armor cracked and smoking. The Zareth forces, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat. The Resistance fighters pushed forward, driving the enemy back. Victory was within their grasp. ASF, the last of the Zareth ships fled the planet. The cheers of the Resistance echoed through the night. Terra Minor was free. Max stood among the wreckage, breathing heavily. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Zareth Empire still controlled much of the galaxy, but for the first time in centuries, the humans had hope. Max looked up at the stars, the blue glow of the superweapons still surrounding him. He knew this was just the beginning. The fall of the Empire had started, and there was no turning back.